Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Wednesday was a little bit of a quieter night in college hoops, but guess what? It wasn't quiet at Bud Walton Arena on Wednesday night. That is because the Arkansas Razorbacks entered this game at 11-7 overall, 0-5 in the SEC. They are, of course, coming off the news that Boogie Flan, their star guard, is out for the season with an injury. Came in without an SEC win. Well, guess what? They end up getting an SEC win. Final score 68-65. Arkansas gets the victory. Let's go ahead and dive in. And let's talk about this and if it is sustainable. First of all, should mention, by the way, even before we talk about the game, about an hour before tip-off, from Arkansas's official communications department, we did get news that Boogie Flan did have surgery on a injured wrist. So for everybody who tried to tell me, oh, Torres, he's just faking the injury to try to prep for the NBA draft, that story never made sense to me. Listen, no disrespect to the kid. I don't think he's a surefire anything. I don't think he's a surefire top 5 pick, top 10 pick, top whatever. And so it never made sense. It wasn't the vibe that I got talking to people. He is officially out for the year. He did officially have surgery. So I'll tell you what, if he's somehow faking it all to get into the NBA draft and skip the rest of the season, he's taking extreme measures because he went under the knife on Wednesday afternoon. Just wish him a speedy recovery. It's an awful situation, and you want him to get better. With that said, let's talk about the game itself, though. And listen, even in a win for Arkansas, there's some positives and there's some negatives. The negative is you fell down by double figures yet again. Now, that's not surprising. When your starting point guard, your leading assist guy is out for the game, it was going to be an adjustment period. John Calipari said after the game there was only 1 day of practice that the entire team had in the lead up to this game without Boogie Flan. So it was a situation where it was going to be a process, but you fall down by 15. But let me start by saying this before we even get into how it ended, all that good stuff. Love the fight out of Arkansas. And the one thing, listen, you see a lot of stuff on social media, and I think it's my job to separate fact from fiction. I know there's been a lot of frustration with Arkansas fans about, has the team quit? Is it NIL? Are they getting paid too much? There's been a game or two where I felt like, okay, they kind of just laid down and quit. I think Missouri last Saturday would qualify as one of those games. I don't get the sense that in most of these games that they've quit, though. I mean, you look at the Florida game. The Florida game was back and forth. It was down to 2 or 3 with about 6-7 minutes to go. They couldn't pull it out. The LSU game, they certainly had their chances. That's a game you probably should win. You probably needed to win. You didn't, but it wasn't because I felt like it was lack of effort. So first off, let's give credit to Arkansas. They fell down 15, never gave up, kept fighting. And I think the big question becomes, what did they do different on Tuesday or on Wednesday that allowed them to win? To me, it's pretty straightforward. So first of all, the difference, in my opinion, in this game and some of the other ones was really twofold. Is one, it was rebounding, okay? And if you listen to this show, we've talked a lot about this team, about their struggles. And one thing I've talked about consistently is that I believe that Arkansas's issues so far this season, I think they've been a little bit misdiagnosed, okay? Because I think there's this notion that they're not a great three-point shooting team, and they're certainly not. But what I keep saying consistently is they're not a great three-point shooting team that also doubles as not a good rebounding team, okay? And so when you miss a lot of shots and you don't get a lot of second, third chance points, third opportunity, second chance points, you're not gonna score a lot and you're not gonna win a lot. And so I've used the example many times. If you've heard me on this platform, any others, I said, look, you have to be a version of Texas A&M. What do I mean by that? Texas A&M is not a good three-point shooting team. They are the number 1 offensive rebounding team in college basketball, and that's kind of how they make their hay. They know that they're not going to be a team that puts up 90 points on any given night, and they know they're a team that's going to have to get 10, 12, 15, 20 second chance points. So the first difference in this game for Arkansas between every other game so far in SEC play, they just crashed the boards and were awesome. 40 total rebounds compared to 30, so a plus 10 rebound margin. Obviously, the most notable one coming from Adu Thero in the final play of the game off that missed free throw where he gets the rebound. And then I think, as importantly, 18 offensive rebounds led to a bunch of second chance points. And so you have that variable in the mix with why Arkansas won. And then to take it a step further, I think the other thing was, and this is pretty simple, you just made your foul shots. 29 of 34 from the foul line. Now you could complain, oh, did they get a favorable whistle? Listen, Georgia shot 29 foul shots, so let's not pretend like it was this completely, totally one-sided whistle. But in some of Arkansas's games, that's been the biggest issue, is they've just been inconsistent at the foul line. You go back 2 or 3 weeks to the Florida game at Bud Walton Arena. That was a game where Arkansas loses by 8, and they missed 11 foul shots. Not great at math, but when you miss 11 foul shots, you lose by 8. Guess what? Guess what that says? That says that, you are going to lose. You could have won if you just made your foul shots, or at least it would have been close. It would have been competitive. But they get the win. Obviously, I think a couple big stories. One, Adu Thiero was awesome. I've kind of been wondering why it felt like he was great early, kind of has taken a step back in SEC play. Well, this was his best game in SEC play this season. 17 points, 11 rebounds for the junior who followed John Calipari from Arkansas. Thought DJ Wagner played well. And listen, I've seen other people reference it, but I think it's totally fair. Trevin Brazil, if you looked at the box score, you wouldn't think much of it. Only 7 points, but he came in and made 3 or 4 plays back to back to back. Sounds like Tom Amansky, AAU National Championships, back to back to back. But came in, made 3 or 4 plays that really sparked Arkansas, that got them going. And so that to me was the X factor. I just think it was toughness, it was fight, it was whatever. And so now the question is, can they go ahead and sustain it? Producer Matt, let's hear a little bit from John Calipari after the game, because I want to use that sound to kind of set up the back half of the conversation, which is this sustainable for the Arkansas Razorbacks?
Second largest deficit in this building to come back and win in the history. This building's 35 years old. Think about that. Everyone here helped us. Did anybody hurt us? No. That's how this is going to be. Every guy's got to come in here with an idea that they're going to help us. Let's write a ridiculous story. We just had to win one. We just had to win one. Free throw and one.
So John Calipari says, let's write a ridiculous story. And listen, I think that what he said is accurate, which is, hey, every single person has to show up ready to perform, ready to contribute every single night, because we needed every single one of you to get that win. The question now, is it actually sustainable? And I'll just say, I think maybe, but I also think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle going forward. So first of all, and I'll say this, even before all of this happened, in my opinion, this was kind of the stretch where you had to make your move, okay? This was the stretch where, if you go back to our conversations that we had 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I said, look, after Florida, because I said Florida's really good. I said, you have at LSU, Missouri, Georgia at home, Oklahoma at home, leading into Kentucky. And I said, like, listen, I think you can make a run. I think you can go on a run there, but it starts with the LSU game, and that's why I thought the LSU game of all the games was absolutely crippling, because you start 0-3. I thought Missouri on the road was a tough matchup for them, and I thought you got to get LSU, because if you get LSU, then you get Georgia at home, you get Oklahoma at home, and you're realistically looking at potentially being 3-4 in SEC play going into the Kentucky game next Saturday. And really having won 3 of the previous 4 games. So in my head, I'm sitting there thinking, if you could just beat LSU, you can go on a little bit of a run. They don't beat LSU. Boogie Fland is hurt. And I guess what I would say is, I'm having my doubts. Now, I think there's a couple positives. One, as I said, the rebounding, the effort, the energy, the second chance, the free throws were a lot better on Wednesday night. And John Calipari even said it after the game. He said, like, look, this might just be who we are. We might just be a team that has to grind out every single win, and that's okay. It's not a great thing. It's not the perfect way to play basketball. You'd like to have a little bit more offensive competency, but that might just be who we are. The question is, one, can you sustain it going forward? I think the good news, beat Oklahoma. If you can beat Oklahoma, then you have a little bit of momentum going into that Kentucky game next Saturday. For people who do not know Arkansas' schedule, they play Oklahoma, and then they're off for a week in the lead up to Kentucky. So shout out John Calipari. I guess he has some friends in the SEC offices, because they did him a solid in terms of how the schedule broke for the Razorbacks heading into what is obviously going to be the most anticipated game of their season when they head into Rupp Arena. So first of all, beat Oklahoma. That game is on Saturday night at Bud Walton. No, the crowd hasn't been great at Bud Walton. You got to show up. Show up and be loud if you're an Arkansas fan. Try to put this team on a 2-game winning streak going into a pseudo bye where they can get healthy, they can get rested, whatever. Then we'll see what happens against Kentucky. Now, I think the downside, the frustrating thing is really two things. One, the SEC is just unbelievable. You still haven't played Alabama. You still haven't played Kentucky. You still haven't played Auburn. But that's a gift and a curse, right? Because the positive, if you are an Arkansas fan, is that basically every game in the league is going to be a quad one opportunity. And so again, it's going to be the opportunity to pick up a good win. And even if you do lose, it's not going to be viewed as a bad loss in the computers. Now, there's a couple that aren't quad ones. LSU at home isn't going to be a quad one, et cetera, et cetera. But I just bring it up because that's the gift and the curse. Is the gift is on a positive side. You look at Arkansas's resume, and you sit there and say, well, wait a second now. There is an opportunity for them to go on a little bit of a run here. But the counter to that is there's just so many tough games. Can they actually pull out these wins? I think the other thing they're going to be battling all year long, and we talked about it on yesterday's show, it's just honestly, it's the fact that they only have 8 healthy scholarship players. And if you watch the game, DJ Wagner, John L. Davis, a few other, these guys are playing 33, 34, 35 minutes. And so even under the scenario where you have no more major injuries, where guys don't miss games, which, I think over the course of a 15, game remaining season, it's going to be tough to keep everybody in the lineup from here on out. Can you get them to produce every single night? Because it's just tough. It's a physical league. It's whatever. But yeah, I don't want to be negative on a day like today. Congrats to the Arkansas Razorbacks because you get the victory. And boy, oh boy, did you need that one. So they are not going winless in SEC play. They are not in last place, and you got to feel really good.